Hello, I am Natalie Rogers with Tat Your Own Adventure, and today we are going to look at working with beads. So one of the first things you need to know when you're working with beads is that you need to remember to size your beads. So you're going to figure out whatever thread size you're going to be using. For my videos, I'm going to be using size 3 because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I've pulled out some selections of beads. Obviously, these guys are going to be too small for the size 3. It's not going to fit on the thread, therefore they're already out. Okay, when you are sizing beads, you want to keep in mind what your end product is. For example, when I tatted up my spiral Christmas tree using these larger beads, they kind of overwhelm the piece. So what I should have done is experimented first. As you can see, experimenting beforehand could have helped me not overwhelm my piece. So if we look, doing a bead every set of picots that's this large kind of took over. Whereas if I had done something more like this, where I alternate smaller beads with larger beads, I think the final piece would have looked a lot nicer. Okay, so picking your beads, sizing your beads. If it fits on your thread, you can use it. Then it's just a matter of, do you like how it looks once you've started tatting it up? A lot of bead work, bead design is going to be trial and error. This was my first attempt, and I have found now, after playing around, that I really like my trial and error, and I think I like this setup the best. Where at the start I had the bead horizontal, and I like it vertical better, so then I put a bead at the bottom and send the thread back up as I thread it, so it's a little more effort on the threading end, but I like that look better. And then it was deciding, okay, do I like the pearl look or the clear look? And I will use that as I tat up my next size 3 Christmas tree, because I like the pattern. Okay, so we are going to thread some beads onto my practice thread here so that I can walk you through some different beading techniques. I always like to thread my beads before winding. So I have a selection of beads here that I'm going to use for different examples. I'm going to be showing you beads on a core thread, beads on the picot, 4 beads combos, which uses some beads, 3 beads on the picot, and it uses 1 bead on the core thread. I'm going to show you how you can still incorporate really large beads into your tatting and it still looks cute. I'm going to show you how I made it so there's no thread on either side of the star on the Christmas tree here, or how I did it with those ornament looking ones. And I'll show you adding beads in a ring and adding beads on a split ring. So this is by far not an exhaustive list of all the different ways you can use beads in your tatting. This is just a start of a lot of the ones that I've run into in patterns I've tried that have been done by other people, or some of the ones that I've designed myself. So with that, I am going to add some beads. I am using a big eye needle. I find them the easiest to use to thread beads of most sizes onto. They come in different sizes. It's especially nice for when I'm working with size 3. Okay, I am going to thread these on in the order I want to use them. Then I will wrap onto a shuttle here. So these are going to be my Beads on Core and Beads on Picot. My set of 4 means that I'm going to put 3 of my set of 4 on one side. Just grab my other beading needle here. One on the other. Demonstrate using some of the larger size beads. And then in order to do the bead on top, I'm going to thread from the bottom up on my star bead here. Then I'm going to thread through my topper bead. And then I'm going to thread back through my star bead. So it can still slide up and down the tatting thread to get it out of your way. You just tug on that topper bead and then pull the thread through and then slide the thread back. So there we go, I've got a topper bead in there. We will do beads on a ring. Followed by beads on a split ring. So 3 of them will go on the blue and 3 of them will go on the purple. Okay, now that both shuttles are wound, we're going to get started showing our bead tutorial. Since I'm not making an actual project, I'm just going to tie my tails together and not worry about hiding ends. Normally at the start of the project, I would hide my ends by tucking my tails as I work. But this is all about bead techniques, not about how to make your project look nice. I mean, you always want a nice looking project, but we're not currently making a project, so I'm going to not worry about hiding my tails. Okay, so now that I've got them tied together, because again, I'm not worried about tucking tails, this is just practice piece to demonstrate the different bead techniques. We will start with bead on the core thread. So let me put a couple stitches in to do 5 stitches. 3, 4, 5. And then since it's on the core thread, it's going to be on my blue thread, so I'll slide that bead up. Just continue my next stitch, pulling it up snug to that bead that I just moved up there. So I'll do 5 stitches, then I'll pause to show you what this looks like. Currently I'm holding the bead in my pinch. Okay. So sometimes you want your bead on the core thread. You can see there's a very small picot that covers the top of it, just to keep it in sync with the other stitches. You can also tension it so it looks like it drops down from your work instead of popping up out of your work. So that is a bead on the core thread. Let's take a look at what a bead on the picot looks like. So I have 5 stitches, and I'm going to slide up a picot bead, which is going to be from my purple thread for this demonstration. So again, I just slide it up. So that part of the strategy is the same. And then I want to pull tight underneath it so that it basically pops up off of my work. Let me put in 5 more stitches after this. Whoops, I didn't flip. That's better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you can see that these beads look very, very different. A bead on the core thread is going to blend in with your stitches, and depending on size, might hang down somewhat or might just be in the height with your stitches. Bead on the picot is going to stick up above your project. Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is putting 4 beads together. So for this one, we are going to slide 1 bead down from our core thread, which is my blue thread in this. Sorry, I put some beads that are bigger than what you would really want on a clover, so it's making getting out the bead I want a little bit more challenging, but we'll get there. Okay, so I want 1 bead for my core thread, and I want 3 beads on my picot. So any picots you do, you can do 1 bead or you can do multiple beads. Experimenting with that, you can see what you like and what you don't like. So just know that that is always an option for you. So I've got 3 beads on my picot, and I have 1 bead on my core thread, and I just slide those down to where I'm going to do my stitch, and I just work my stitch like normal, sliding it tight up to that group of beads. Let me put in a couple stitches after it, just because it makes it easier to see the effect. 1, 2, don't need to tat in my tails. 3, keep catching my tails. 4, 5. Okay. So I really like the look of the 4 bead cluster. I think it gives a nice framing. Kind of looks like flowers a little bit. I just think it's cute. So I've enjoyed the patterns I've tatted that have had that bead configuration. So then we're going to tat up a ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can play around with our big beads. So I'm going to slide a big bead. So this is a bead that's going to be on the core of this ring, core thread of this ring. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you're putting a bead into the core thread of a ring, you do not have to prep and put the bead in the ring ahead of time. So this was a core thread bead, and as you can see, tatted 5 stitches. That's just the picot that stretches over the bead, and then 5 more stitches, and I closed my ring. For this is bead size, it might have been good to put 1 or 2 more stitches in. So it really depends on what you want it to look like, how you do it. You can slide it so that you see that picot. You can also slide that picot to the front or back, so that really all you see is the stitches around it, on whatever your front side of your tatting is. So there are different ways you can do that. So that's one way you can use bigger beads. It is not the only way. Let me we're going to switch to no, we're not. So that was a big bead in a ring. One way that you can do it, that was on the core thread. We're gonna do one, two, do 5 stitches in between, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're gonna do another ring with one of the bigger beads. Okay, this time we're going to put the bead on the picot of the ring. So that means we do need to put it into our hold for our ring. Okay, a little bit more thread, so give me a moment as I move this down a little bit. So again, when you want beads on your picots within rings, you need to put them into your hold before you start making your circle. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bead comes up. 1. 2, 3, 4, 5. Close that ring. Okay, so again, you can see the vast difference between a ring that has the bead on the core thread and a ring that has the bead on the picot. So again, the core thread, you do not have to move the bead up before you start. You're going to move the bead up just when you need it. On the picot, you need to make sure that the bead is in your ring before you start. So let me do chain here. I'm going to do the chain in blue. Switch it up a little bit. Oops, did not want that bead there. So sometimes when working with beads, your beads are going to slide up on you when you don't expect them to. All you have to do is pick them back out and move them back down, wrap them back around your shuttle where they're out of your way. Sometimes beads just have a mind of their own, so. Okay, 1, 2, here comes my beads again. These beads really want to come out. They want to come and play. I'm not ready for them yet. They're very slippery beads. 4, 5. Move this down one more time. And then your bead size doesn't confine you to working in just rings, so we'll put this last big bead out here on a chain. And this one's on a picot. Pick your bead. Okay, so that's big beads. You can do all sorts of things. You can vary it, as I did here, where I worked with some smaller beads and some bigger beads in combo. I've got another project that is waiting to be put back on a shuttle at some point in time, that uses 3 different sides of beads. There's the small silver, the medium silver, and then the giant purple beads. So you can have fun with it, you can play with it. Beading is a lot of fun. It can take a simple pattern and make it more complex looking, even though really beading is just a matter of sliding. So it's usually not super complex to actually add beads. But it does take some time to figure out patterns that you actually like. And loading beads can take a while. My Christmas tree earrings have 60 beads, not counting the star topper per earring, so that can get tricky. Sorry, I wanted to show you beads in this ring, so let me get the beads that are going to be in it because they want to go on a picot. So with this one, I'm going to show you how to use a topper bead. So this is the star bead that has that topper bead, to make it so that you've got a bead sticking up, but you're not seeing the bead coming back down the back side of your bead. So this works when you have when you want beads to stick up from a project, but you don't want to see thread running down one side of the bead. Okay, so let me just put this into my hold. That looks about right. There we go. Okay, this should be a more manageable shuttle now that it doesn't have the random star bead getting in the way. Okay, because now the star bead is in my hold. Okay, so I'm going to do 5, and then I'm going to bring up that star bead. Okay, my star got tangled. Hang on. I need to move it just a little bit away from where it actually is so that it stops tangling with the rest of my thread. Oh, it should be better. Okay. So we're going to do 5 stitches. I like odd numbers, so that's how we ended up stuck on 5. It's also a prime number, which is fun. I am a math nerd. I teach math and computer science and some other things for my day job, which I absolutely love. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna slide up that star ring, which I just do by grabbing the topper bead, pulling it up, and then tugging on the correct thread to move me to where I want to go. Okay, I move it into position. Pull that topper bead tight, so now it's in position that I want. And then I just finish my ring. Runaway beads. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then close my ring. And then, as you can see, the star bead on both sides does not have thread running down it. The thread you can see a little bit up at the top here because it comes out of both sides of this bead. Then it goes back down through that star bead because of how we strung it at the beginning, and hides that, so it makes it nice and just kind of stands out without that extra thread cluttering the look. Okay, that brings us to beads in the ring. So let me just get a chain of 5 between this ring and the next one really quick. And we're going to do beads in a ring, which you've actually already seen with the larger beads. But I will do a different combo for you so you can see what it looks like to have both beads on the core thread and the picot. In the ring. That was the wrong stitch. Wrong half of the stitch. Okay, first half, second half. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm looking at beads in a ring. What we're going to do is we're going to slide 1 bead up into our ring, and then the other beads are going to be core thread beads. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to slide a core thread bead up. So notice my next bead is still hanging outside my ring. I'm not grabbing that one. I'm grabbing one from the shuttle. It's a little bit buried. There we go. It's popping out when I didn't need it, and now it wants to hide. Okay, so let's slide 1. I just want one of you. Okay, and then I'm gonna do 5 more stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm gonna slide the next bead up. This bead is the one that was on my ring because I want this one to be on my picot. It's gonna be my top bead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I'm gonna slide a core thread bead into place and do 5 more. A little bit bigger ring. Oops, that was not the right stitch for that second half. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 core thread bead, 5 picot bead, 5 core thread bead, 5. Close it up. And as you can see, that gave those beads a very different look than if all of them had been picot beads or if all of them had been core beads. So you can mix it up, mix and match, have some fun. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do for this specific video on working with beads is beads on a split ring. So I will walk you through that now. Okay, so I'm going to start my ring with the purple. I'm going to do all beads on picots for this one. So there are 3 beads in the center here. I'm going to put on this side, I'm going to do 2 bead, 2 bead, 2 bead, 2. So 1, 2, slide up a bead, 1, 2, slide up a bead, just 1 bead, 1, 2, slide up a bead, 1, 2. And then the second half of my split ring is going to mirror this. So on the unflipped side, I will also have 2 bead, 2 bead, 2 bead, 2. Notice I do not have any more beads strung in the ring. That's okay, because again, I'm putting them on the picots. And when I'm working unflipped stitches, all that means is when I get to the bead spot, I'm going to slide a bead into place. So we've got second half of the stitch, then the first half, because we're on a split ring. 1. Beads are coming, trying to arrive early. Whoops, that was not supposed to flip. It again. Sorry. 2. There we go. 1, 2. Slide a bead down. Now the beads want to hide. We're all hanging out. Now they want to hide. Okay. Slide a bead down. Move into the next unflipped stitch. 1, 2, slide a bead down, next stitch, still unflipped stitches. 1, 2, slide the last bead into place. 1, 2. Okay, we have 2 bead, 2 bead, 2 bead, 2 on both sides. Hold it while I close it. There we go. So there's beads on a split ring.